The sun beat down on the rolling hills of Mkumbane, a village nestled deep within the heart of KwaZulu-Natal. Life here moved at the rhythm of the earth, dictated by the changing seasons and the ancient traditions passed down through generations. The air hung thick with the scent of wood smoke and the sweet aroma of ripening maize. Thatched huts, painted in vibrant hues of ochre and indigo, dotted the landscape, their rounded forms echoing the gentle curves of the surrounding hills. This was a place where the veil between the living and the spirit world was thin, where the whispers of the ancestors could still be heard on the wind. Here, in this remote corner of the world, our story begins. Our main character is Nandi, a young woman of about 22, her spirit as untamed as the wild grasslands that surrounded her home. She was a child of the earth, her hands calloused from working the land, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of the ages. Unlike many of her peers, Nandi harbored a deep curiosity about the world beyond the village, a yearning for something more than the familiar routines of daily life. She often sought solace in the quiet of the surrounding hills, listening to the whispers of the wind, seeking answers to the questions that burned within her soul. Her grandmother, Gogo Thandiu, was the village's elder, a woman whose face was a roadmap of time, her eyes holding the secrets of generations. Gogo Thandiu was a keeper of the ancient lore, a storyteller whose words could weave magic and transport her listeners to other realms. She saw in Nandi a spark, a potential that both thrilled and worried her. The village was preparing for the annual Umkosi Wakavuna, the harvest festival, a time of great significance where the ancestors were honored and blessings were sought for the coming year. But this year, an unease had settled over Mkumbane. The rains had been erratic, the crops were failing, and a strange silence had fallen over the usually vibrant community. The elders, led by the respected but increasingly anxious Chief Sangu, decided to consult the ancient texts, a collection of scrolls that held the wisdom and the secrets of their ancestors. These texts, however, were not without their dangers, for they spoke of powers that could be both benevolent and malevolent. A shadow of worry hung over the village, a feeling that something was amiss, that the delicate balance between the living and the spirit world was about to be disturbed. The preparations for the ritual were underway, the villagers working with a sense of urgency, their faces etched with concern. Nandi felt the tension in the air, the unspoken fears that lingered beneath the surface. She sensed a shift in the spiritual realm, a disturbance that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She tried to voice her concerns to the elders, but her pleas were dismissed as the anxieties of a young woman. The stage was set, the ancient texts were opened, and the words were spoken, but something was wrong. The cadence was off, the energy was fractured. Instead of blessings, they unleashed something far more sinister, something that would plunge the village into chaos and test the very limits of their courage. The ground trembled, not with the gentle rumble of ancestral spirits, but with a malevolent force that made the very air crackle. The shadows moved, not like shadows at all, but with a life of their own, small, grotesque, and hungry. The Tokoloshes had arrived. The village of Mkumbane was more than just a collection of huts. It was a living, breathing entity, deeply connected to the land and the spirits that inhabited it. The surrounding hills, covered in a tapestry of green and gold, were not just scenery. They were the guardians of the village, their ancient rocks holding the stories of generations past. The Umzimvubu River snaked its way through the valley, providing life and sustenance to the community, its waters reflecting the ever-changing sky. The air was thick with the smells of the earth, the scent of burning mfefo, and the sweet fragrance of the indigenous flowers that bloomed in abundance. The village itself was a vibrant hub of activity, with children playing in the dusty streets, women tending to their gardens, and men gathering to share stories and laughter. It was a place where tradition and community were paramount, where the rhythms of life were dictated by the cycles of nature. Nandi, our protagonist, was a complex character, her spirit a blend of fierce independence and deep compassion. She was born under a blood moon, a sign that her grandmother, Gogo Thandiu, believed marked her as someone special, someone destined for greatness. Unlike her peers, who were content with the traditional roles of women in the village, Nandi yearned for knowledge and understanding. She spent hours poring over her grandmother's ancient texts, trying to decipher the secrets hidden within their faded pages. She was a skilled herbalist, her knowledge of the medicinal properties of plants surpassing even that of the village healers. She had a deep connection to the earth, a gift that allowed her to sense the subtle shifts in the spiritual realm, a sensitivity that often left her feeling uneasy and out of place. Her relationship with her grandmother was one of deep love and respect, but also of subtle conflict, as Gogo Thandiwe struggled to contain Nandi's rebellious spirit and guide her along the path of tradition. Gogo Thandiwe, on the other hand, was the embodiment of tradition, a woman whose life was dedicated to preserving the ancient ways of her ancestors. She was the village's storyteller, her words weaving magic and transporting her listeners to other realms. She was a healer, a wise woman whose knowledge of herbs and rituals was unmatched. She had seen much in her long life, both the beauty and the darkness of the world, and she understood the delicate balance between the living and the spirit world. She loved Nandi deeply, but she also feared for her, knowing that her granddaughter's unique gifts could also lead her down a dangerous path. Her relationship with Chief Sangu, the village leader, was one of mutual respect and trust, but she often disagreed with his more rigid adherence to tradition, believing that flexibility and adaptability were essential for survival. Chief Sangu was a man of his time, a leader who valued order and stability above all else. He was a strong and capable leader, but he was also resistant to change, believing that the old ways were the only true path. He was a man of deep faith, his belief in the power of the ancestors unwavering. His relationship with Gogo Thandiwe was often strained, as they frequently clashed over their differing views on tradition and the need for change. He was also deeply concerned about the failing crops and the growing unease in the village, his anxiety fueling his decision to consult the ancient texts. His motivation was rooted in a desire to protect his people, but his fear of the unknown would ultimately lead him down a dangerous path. The initial conflict was brewing, a clash between tradition and change, between fear and courage, between the living and the spirit world, setting the stage for the chaos that was about to unfold. The Tokoloshes' arrival plunged Mcombane into chaos, their mischievous nature turning malicious, their small forms wreaking havoc. Amidst the terror, Nandi discovers a hidden passage in Gogo Thandiwe's texts revealing the ritual was deliberately sabotaged, not by accident. Chief Sangu, desperate to regain control, hides his own family's dark secret. They were the original keepers of the forbidden knowledge, the source of the very power now tormenting them. He knew the ritual was flawed, but he pushed ahead, hoping to seize power, not understanding he'd unleashed something far more dangerous than he bargained for. Nandi realizes the true battle isn't just against the Tokoloshes, but against the deceit within her own community. The immediate aftermath of the Tokoloshes' emergence was a blur of chaos and fear. The once peaceful village of Mcombane was now a battleground, with the small, hairy creatures wreaking havoc, their laughter echoing through the terrified streets. Nandi, witnessing the destruction and the fear in the eyes of her people, knew she had to act. Her primary goal was clear: to find a way to banish the Tokoloshes and restore peace to her village. She realized that the key lay in understanding the ancient texts and the flawed ritual that had unleashed this nightmare. Her initial obstacle was the lack of trust, as the villagers, gripped by fear, struggled to believe that a young woman could solve their problem. Chief Sangu, now consumed by guilt and a desperate need to maintain his authority, actively undermined Nandi's efforts, seeing her as a threat to his power. Nandi's journey began with a deeper dive into Gogo Thandiwe's hidden texts, where she discovered the truth about the ritual's sabotage. The texts revealed that the original ritual was designed to harness the power of the ancestors, but a crucial part of the incantation had been deliberately altered, turning it into a gateway for the Tokoloshes. This revelation ignited a fire within Nandi, a burning desire to uncover the truth and bring the saboteur to justice. Her relationship with her grandmother's spirit became her guiding force, a silent connection that offered her solace and wisdom in the face of adversity. She also found an unexpected ally in Themba, a young man from the village, a skilled hunter and tracker who had always admired Nandi's strength and intelligence. Their relationship deepened as they worked together, their mutual respect blossoming into something more, a connection forged in the crucible of shared danger. Meanwhile, a subplot began to unfold, focusing on the internal struggles of Chief Zangu. His guilt over the ritual's failure and the revelation of his family's dark secret began to weigh heavily on his conscience. He found himself increasingly isolated, his authority crumbling, his people losing faith in his leadership. He was torn between his desire to protect his family's reputation and his responsibility to his people. He began to secretly investigate the ancient texts, hoping to find a way to reverse the damage, but his actions were often clumsy and misguided, further complicating the situation. This internal conflict added another layer of complexity to the narrative, highlighting the human cost of ambition and the destructive nature of secrets. As Nandi and Themba worked to unravel the mystery of the sabotaged ritual, they faced numerous obstacles. The Tokoloshes were always one step ahead, their mischievous nature turning increasingly malevolent, their attacks becoming more frequent and more dangerous. They had to contend with the distrust and fear of the villagers, many of whom were reluctant to support Nandi's efforts, believing that she was too young and inexperienced. They also had to navigate the complex politics of the village, where old grudges and rivalries simmered beneath the surface. Despite these challenges, Nandi and Themba persevered, their determination fueled by their love for their people and their belief in the power of hope. Their journey was not just about banishing the Tokoloshes. It was about uncovering the truth, confronting the darkness within their own community, and finding the strength to fight for a better future. The village of Mkombane, already teetering on the edge of chaos, was about to be plunged into a new level of darkness. The inciting incident, the event that would irrevocably alter the status quo and set the main conflict into motion, came in the form of a brutal attack. It wasn't just another random act of mischief by the Tokoloshes. This time, it was targeted, deliberate, and devastating. The Tokoloshes, emboldened by their growing power, descended upon the village in the dead of night, their small, grotesque forms moving with terrifying speed and ferocity. They weren't just stealing food or disrupting the peace. They were actively seeking to harm, their claws and teeth tearing through thatched roofs and wooden doors, their laughter echoing like a death knell. This attack was different, more violent, a clear sign that the Tokoloshes were no longer content with mere chaos. They wanted blood. The target of this vicious assault was Gogo Thandai's hut, the heart of the village's spiritual knowledge. The Tokoloshes, it seemed, were aware of the power she held, the threat she posed to their reign of terror. They tore through her home, scattering her precious texts, destroying her herbs, and leaving a scene of utter devastation. Gogo Thandiu, despite her age, fought bravely, her spirit unwavering, but she was no match for the sheer number and ferocity of the Tokoloshes. She was gravely wounded, her life hanging by a thread, her body ravaged by their poison claws. The attack on Gogo Thandiu was not just a personal tragedy. It was an assault on the very soul of the village, a deliberate attempt to extinguish the light of knowledge and hope. This act of violence served as the catalyst that propelled Nandi into action, her grief and anger fueling her determination to fight back. The news of Gogo Thandai's attack spread like wildfire through the village, shattering the remaining vestiges of peace and unity. The villagers, already gripped by fear, were now consumed by despair and a thirst for revenge. They looked to Nandi, their last hope, their beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. The attack forced Nandi to abandon her cautious approach, to embrace her destiny as the village's protector. She realized that she could no longer rely on diplomacy or patience. She had to take decisive action to confront the Tokoloshes and the forces that had unleashed them. Her motivation was no longer just about restoring peace to her village. It was about avenging her grandmother, protecting her people, and reclaiming her heritage. The attack on Gogo Thandiu served as a turning point, a moment of profound loss and transformation. It shattered the illusion of safety, forcing the characters to confront the true nature of the threat they faced. It revealed the depth of the Tokoloshes' malevolence and the extent of their power. It also exposed the vulnerability of the village and the fragility of the human spirit. This inciting incident propelled the story forward, creating a sense of urgency and a clear motivation for the characters to act. Nandi, driven by grief and anger, embarked on a quest for answers, a journey that would test her courage, her strength, and her very soul. The status quo was shattered, the main conflict was ignited, and the battle for the soul of Mcombane had begun. Gogo Thandai's attack had a profound impact on Mcombane, leaving the village reeling from the shock and grief. The immediate consequence was a breakdown of order, with many villagers succumbing to fear and despair. The once vibrant community was now divided, some seeking refuge in the surrounding hills, others clamoring for revenge. Nandi, despite her own grief, took charge, her leadership skills emerging in the face of adversity. She understood that they couldn't afford to succumb to chaos. They needed a plan, a way to fight back. She began to rally the remaining villagers, reminding them of their strength and their shared heritage, urging them to stand together against the darkness. This act of leadership marked a significant shift in Nandi's character, transforming her from a curious young woman into a fierce protector of her people. As Nandi began to organize the villagers, she realized that she needed more than just courage. She needed knowledge. She needed a way to understand the Tokoloshes and their weaknesses. She sought the help of Baba Mthembu, a recluse who lived on the outskirts of the village, a man rumored to possess a deep understanding of the spirit world. Baba Mthembu was a complex character, his face etched with the scars of past battles, his eyes holding a mixture of wisdom and sorrow. He was initially reluctant to get involved, having witnessed the destructive power of the spirit world firsthand, but Nandi's unwavering determination and her genuine concern for her people eventually won him over. His introduction brought a new dynamic to the narrative, adding a layer of mystical knowledge and spiritual insight to the conflict. Baba Mthembu revealed that the Tokoloshes were not just mindless creatures of chaos. They were manifestations of unresolved anger and pain, spirits tethered to the mortal realm by unfinished business. He explained that the key to banishing them lay not in brute force, but in understanding their origins and finding a way to release them from their torment. This revelation added a new dimension to Nandi's quest, transforming it from a simple battle against evil into a complex exploration of the human condition. It also introduced a new subplot, focusing on the origins of the Tokoloshes and the secrets of the spirit world. This subplot added a layer of depth to the narrative, highlighting the interconnectedness of the living and the dead and the importance of healing the wounds of the past. Meanwhile, Chief Zangu, consumed by guilt and fear, became increasingly erratic. His attempts to regain control were clumsy and misguided, often hindering Nandi's efforts. He was torn between his desire to protect his family's reputation and his responsibility to his people, his internal conflict manifesting in increasingly desperate and irrational actions. His character arc became a cautionary tale, highlighting the destructive nature of pride and the corrosive power of secrets. He introduced a sense of internal conflict within the village, a reminder that the greatest battles are often fought within ourselves. His subplot added a layer of political intrigue to the narrative, highlighting the complexities of leadership and the dangers of unchecked ambition. The Tokoloshes, sensing the growing resistance, intensified their attacks, their mischievous nature turning increasingly malevolent. They began to target specific individuals, those who were seen as threats to their reign of terror, creating a climate of fear and paranoia. This new level of aggression forced Nandi and her allies to adapt their strategies, to become more cunning and more resourceful. They began to use the environment to their advantage, setting traps, using herbs to ward off the Tokoloshes, and learning to fight them on their own terms. Their character development was marked by their increasing resourcefulness and their growing understanding of the Tokoloshes' weaknesses. The conflict escalated, the stakes were raised, and the battle for the soul of Mcombane became more intense than ever. As the village faced these new challenges, Nandi and her allies were forced to confront their own limitations, to question their beliefs, and to find new sources of strength. They realized that they couldn't rely solely on their physical strength or their knowledge of the ancient ways. They needed to tap into their inner reserves of courage, compassion, and resilience. Their journey was not just about fighting the Tokoloshes. It was about discovering their own potential, about learning to work together, and about finding hope in the face of despair. The rising action was building, the tension was mounting, and the characters were on a collision course with their destiny. The conflict between the villagers and the Tokoloshes escalated dramatically, pushing Mcombane to the brink of collapse. The Tokoloshes, now emboldened by their unchecked power, launched coordinated attacks, targeting not only individuals but also key resources, such as the village's water supply and food stores. The once familiar landscape became a treacherous battleground, with Tokoloshes lurking in every shadow, their laughter a constant reminder of the looming danger. Nandi and her allies found themselves constantly on the defensive, their efforts to protect the village becoming increasingly desperate. The stakes were raised, the tension was mounting, and the survival of Mcombane hung precariously in the balance. As the attacks intensified, Nandi realized that she needed to delve deeper into the mysteries of the spirit world. Guided by Baba Mthembu's teachings, she began to explore the ancient burial grounds, seeking clues about the Tokoloshes' origins. She discovered that the Tokoloshes were not simply random spirits. They were the souls of those who had died tragically, their unresolved pain and anger binding them to the mortal realm. This discovery added a new layer of complexity to the conflict, transforming the battle from a simple fight against evil into a quest for understanding and healing. The subplot focusing on the Tokoloshes' origins became increasingly intertwined with the main narrative, highlighting the interconnectedness of the living and the dead. Meanwhile, Chief Zungu's internal conflict reached a breaking point. His guilt over the ritual's failure and his fear of losing his authority led him to make a series of desperate and misguided decisions. He attempted to seize control of the ancient texts, hoping to find a way to reverse the damage, but his actions only served to further destabilize the village and undermine Nandi's efforts. His character arc became a tragic illustration of the corrosive power of pride and the destructive nature of secrets. His subplot added a layer of political intrigue to the narrative, highlighting the dangers of unchecked ambition and the complexities of leadership in times of crisis. The relationship between Nandi and Themba deepened as they faced these escalating challenges. Their shared experiences forged a bond of mutual respect and affection, their connection providing them with strength and solace in the face of adversity. However, their relationship was also tested by the increasing dangers they faced, forcing them to confront their own fears and insecurities. The subplot focusing on their romance added a layer of emotional depth to the narrative, highlighting the human cost of conflict and the importance of love and connection in times of crisis. The subplots began to converge, creating a web of interconnected narratives that amplified the tension and complexity of the story. The origins of the Tokoloshes, Chief Zungu's internal struggles, and the growing romance between Nandi and Themba all contributed to the rising action, pushing the characters to their limits and setting the stage for the inevitable climax. The stakes were raised, the tension was mounting, and the characters were on a collision course with their destiny. The rising action was reaching its peak, the threads of the narrative were tightening, and the battle for the soul of Mcombane was about to reach its final, explosive stage. As the story progressed, the lines between good and evil became increasingly blurred, forcing the characters to confront their own inner demons and to question their own beliefs. The Tokoloshes, once seen as mindless creatures of chaos, were revealed to be victims of their own tragic pasts, their pain and anger a reflection of the injustices they had suffered. Chief Zungu, once seen as a symbol of authority and tradition, was exposed as a flawed and vulnerable man, his actions driven by fear and a desperate need to maintain control. The rising action was not just about the external conflict. It was about the internal battles that the characters were fighting, the challenges they faced in confronting their own darkness and finding their own paths to redemption. The rising action reached its peak, the village of Mkumbane teetering on the precipice of destruction. The Tokoloshes, sensing the villagers' growing resilience, launched a final, all-out assault, their numbers seemingly endless, their ferocity unmatched. The village was engulfed in chaos, the once familiar landscape transformed into a nightmarish battleground. Nandi and her allies, their strength waning, found themselves pushed to their limits, their courage tested by the relentless onslaught. This final attack served as a major turning point, forcing the characters to confront their deepest fears and to make difficult choices that would determine the fate of their village. The stakes were higher than ever, the tension was palpable, and the climax was rapidly approaching. A pivotal moment occurred when Nandi, during a desperate attempt to defend the village, stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the ancient burial grounds. This chamber, unknown to anyone in the village, was filled with ancient artifacts and texts, revealing the true nature of the ritual that had unleashed the Tokoloshes. She discovered that the ritual was not simply flawed. It was designed to be a sacrifice, a deliberate attempt to appease a dark force that had been dormant for centuries. This revelation shattered Nandi's understanding of the conflict, forcing her to confront the possibility that the Tokoloshes were not just victims. They were pawns in a much larger game. This turning point added a new layer of complexity to the narrative, transforming the battle from a simple fight against evil into a struggle against a much more insidious and ancient power. Chief Zulu, witnessing the destruction and the desperation of his people, finally reached his breaking point. His guilt and his fear, once driving forces behind his actions, were replaced by a sense of profound remorse. He realized that his ambition and his pride had led his village to the brink of destruction, and he resolved to make amends, even if it meant sacrificing himself. He publicly confessed his family's dark secret, revealing their role in the flawed ritual, and pledged to help Nandi in any way he could. This act of confession marked a significant character transformation, highlighting the power of redemption and the importance of acknowledging one's mistakes. His subplot, once a source of conflict, now became a catalyst for change, adding a layer of hope to the narrative. The relationship between Nandi and Themba also underwent a significant transformation. As they faced the prospect of death, they confessed their love for each other, their bond deepening in the face of adversity. Their romance, once a source of comfort and solace, became a source of strength and determination, fueling their resolve to fight for their future. This development added an emotional dimension to the rising action, highlighting the importance of love and connection in times of crisis. Their subplot became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can find solace and strength in the bonds of love. As the climax approached, the characters were forced to confront their own limitations, to embrace their strengths, and to make sacrifices that would determine the fate of their village. Nandi, embracing her destiny as the village's protector, finally understood the true nature of her powers, her connection to the earth and the spirit world becoming a source of immense strength. Themba, embracing his role as Nandi's protector, vowed to stand by her side, his loyalty and his love unwavering. Chief Zulu, embracing his role as a repentant leader, pledged to use his knowledge to help Nandi, his desire for redemption outweighing his fear of death. The rising action was reaching its peak, the characters were fully developed, and the stage was set for the final, explosive confrontation. The convergence of all these elements created a powerful sense of anticipation, the tension mounting with each passing moment. The characters were fully invested in the conflict, their motivations clear, their destinies intertwined. The stage was set for the climax, the final battle that would determine the fate of Mkumbane, the culmination of all the challenges and sacrifices that had led them to this point. The rising action had served its purpose, building the tension, developing the characters, and preparing the audience for the dramatic and emotional climax that was about to unfold. The build-up to the climax began with a sense of uneasy calm, a brief respite from the relentless attacks of the Tokoloshes. Nandi, having discovered the truth about the ritual and the dark force it was intended to appease, knew that the final confrontation would be unlike anything they had faced before. She used this time to prepare, to gather her allies, and to devise a strategy that would not only banish the Tokoloshes, but also sever the connection to the ancient evil. This period of preparation served as a crucial bridge between the rising action and the climax, allowing the characters to regroup, to reflect on their experiences, and to solidify their resolve. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, a sense that the calm was merely the prelude to a devastating storm. Minor confrontations occurred as the villagers, driven by a mixture of fear and determination, began to question their own roles in the unfolding events. Some accused Chief Zulu of betrayal, their trust in him shattered by his family's dark secret. Others rallied around Nandi, their faith in her leadership unwavering. These minor conflicts served to highlight the divisions within the community, a reminder that the battle against the Tokoloshes was not just an external struggle, but also an internal one, a fight for the soul of the village. These smaller confrontations served as a microcosm of the larger conflict, foreshadowing the challenges that lay ahead. Chief Zulu, now fully committed to redemption, used his knowledge of the ancient texts to help Nandi understand the nature of the dark force they were facing. He revealed that the force was not a single entity, but a collective of tormented spirits, their anger and pain amplified by the flawed ritual. He explained that the only way to defeat it was not through brute force, but through compassion and understanding, by finding a way to release the spirits from their torment. This revelation added a new dimension to the conflict, transforming it from a simple battle against evil into a quest for healing and reconciliation. It also set the stage for a major resolution, suggesting that the path to victory lay not in destruction, but in empathy. The relationship between Nandi and Themba deepened during this period of preparation, their love for each other becoming a source of strength and inspiration. They shared their fears and their hopes, their bond forged in the crucible of shared danger. Their romance served as a counterpoint to the darkness that surrounded them, a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, love and connection could prevail. Their subplot, while seemingly secondary to the main conflict, played a crucial role in humanizing the characters and adding an emotional dimension to the narrative. As Nandi prepared for the final confrontation, she also sought guidance from Baba Mthembu, his wisdom and his knowledge of the spirit world proving invaluable. He revealed that Nandi's connection to the earth and the spirit world was more profound than she had realized, that she possessed the power to heal the tormented spirits and to sever the connection to the ancient evil. This revelation empowered Nandi, giving her the confidence and the strength she needed to face the challenges ahead. Baba Mthembu's guidance served as a crucial turning point, providing Nandi with the tools she needed to confront the darkness. The build-up to the climax was a period of intense preparation, both physical and emotional. The characters were fully invested in the conflict, their motivations clear, their destinies intertwined. The stage was set for the final battle, the culmination of all the challenges and sacrifices that had led them to this point. The minor confrontations, the revelations, and the character developments all served to heighten the tension and to prepare the audience for the dramatic and emotional climax that was about to unfold. The build-up was complete, the stage was set, and the final act was about to begin. The final build-up to the climax was marked by a palpable sense of dread, the uneasy calm before the storm replaced by a growing awareness of the immense challenges that lay ahead. Nandi and her allies, despite their preparations, knew that the Tokoloshes would not go down without a fight. The final obstacles were not just physical, they were also emotional and spiritual, forcing the characters to confront their deepest fears and to make sacrifices that would test the very limits of their courage. The tension was at its peak, the stakes were higher than ever, and the fate of Mkombane hung precariously in the balance. The narrative threads were tightening, all leading to the inevitable convergence in the climax. A final, desperate attack by the Tokoloshes tested the villagers' resolve, their coordinated assault designed to break their spirits and to undermine their preparations. The Tokoloshes, sensing the impending confrontation, threw everything they had at the village, their malevolence reaching its peak. This final assault served as a crucial test of the villagers' unity and their determination, forcing them to rely on their training and their courage to survive. This final obstacle highlighted the resilience of the human spirit and the power of community in the face of adversity. It also served as a final reminder of the threat they faced, ensuring that the audience was fully invested in the outcome. The emotional stakes were raised as Nandi and Themba faced the possibility of losing each other. Their love, once a source of strength, now became a source of vulnerability, their fear of separation adding an emotional dimension to the conflict. Their final moments together were filled with a mixture of love, fear, and determination, their bond forged in the crucible of shared danger. Their subplot, once seemingly secondary to the main narrative, now became a crucial element in the build-up, highlighting the human cost of conflict and the importance of love and connection in times of crisis. Their emotional journey added a layer of depth to the narrative, ensuring that the audience was fully invested in their fate. Chief Zangu, determined to atone for his past mistakes, played a crucial role in preparing for the final confrontation. He used his knowledge of the ancient texts to devise a strategy that would not only banish the Tokoloshes, but also sever the connection to the ancient evil. His redemption arc, once a source of conflict, now became a catalyst for change, highlighting the power of forgiveness and the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. His character transformation added a layer of complexity to the narrative, ensuring that the audience was fully invested in his fate. Baba Mthembu, his wisdom and his knowledge of the spirit world proving invaluable, provided Nandi with the final pieces of the puzzle, revealing the specific incantations and rituals that would be needed to defeat the Tokoloshes. His guidance served as a crucial turning point, providing Nandi with the tools she needed to confront the darkness. His role in the build-up highlighted the importance of knowledge and understanding in overcoming adversity, ensuring that the audience was fully prepared for the final confrontation. The final tensions were palpable, the characters fully invested in the conflict, their motivations clear, their destinies intertwined. The narrative threads were all aligned, leading to the inevitable convergence in the climax. The stage was set, the final obstacles were in place, and the characters were ready to face their destiny. The build-up was complete, the tension was at its peak, and the final act was about to begin, promising a dramatic and emotional climax that would determine the fate of Mkombane. The final confrontation between Nandi and the Tokoloshes was a chaotic dance of light and shadow, a desperate struggle for survival that tested the limits of courage and resilience. The Tokoloshes, their malevolence reaching its peak, attacked with a ferocity that threatened to overwhelm the villagers, their laughter echoing through the terrified streets. Nandi, drawing on her connection to the earth and the spirit world, stood at the forefront, her determination unwavering, her resolve fueled by the love for her people and the memory of her grandmother. The battle was not just physical. It was a spiritual clash, a struggle for the very soul of the village. The decisive moment came when Nandi, guided by Baba Mthembu's teachings and Chief Zangu's knowledge, began to chant the ancient incantations, her voice resonating with power and purpose. The incantations, designed not to destroy but to heal, created a wave of energy that swept through the village, weakening the Tokoloshes and severing their connection to the dark force that had bound them to the mortal realm. The Tokoloshes, their forms flickering and fading, cried out in pain and anguish, their torment finally coming to an end. This decisive action marked a turning point in the battle, the culmination of all the sacrifices and challenges that had led them to this point. As the Tokoloshes faded, their tormented spirits finally released, Chief Zangu, in an act of ultimate redemption, stepped forward, his voice clear and strong, his heart filled with remorse. He completed the final ritual, severing the connection to the ancient evil, ensuring that it could never again threaten the village. His act of selflessness marked the resolution of his subplot, his journey from a flawed leader to a repentant hero complete. His sacrifice brought a sense of closure to the narrative, highlighting the power of forgiveness and the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. The subplot focusing on Nandi and Themba also reached its culmination, their love for each other serving as a beacon of hope in the midst of chaos. They fought side by side, their bond strengthened by their shared experiences, their love a powerful force against the darkness. Their survival, a testament to their resilience and their connection, brought a sense of emotional closure to the narrative, highlighting the importance of love and connection in times of crisis. Their story served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can find solace and strength in the bonds of love. The climax was a powerful and emotional culmination of the story, a resolution of the main conflicts and the subplots that had driven the narrative. The Tokoloshes were banished, the dark force was severed, and the village was saved. But the victory was not without its cost. The characters forever changed by the challenges they had faced. The resolution brought a sense of closure to the narrative, leaving the audience with a feeling of both satisfaction and catharsis. Now it's your turn. Reflect on the themes of tradition, courage, and sacrifice explored in this story. What lessons can we learn from the villagers of Mcombane? How can we apply these lessons to our own lives? Share your thoughts, discuss, and let's continue the conversation. The immediate aftermath of the climactic battle was a mixture of relief and exhaustion, the villagers of Mcombane slowly emerging from the darkness that had engulfed their lives. The Tokoloshes were gone, the dark force was severed, and the village was safe, but the scars of the conflict remained, a reminder of the challenges they had faced and the sacrifices they had made. The process of healing began, both physically and emotionally, the villagers working together to rebuild their homes and their lives, their unity strengthened by their shared experience. The conclusion of the story was not just about the end of the conflict. It was about the beginning of a new chapter, a future shaped by the lessons they had learned. Nandi, now hailed as a hero, took on the mantle of leadership, her wisdom and her compassion guiding her people. She ensured that the old ways were honored, that the stories of the ancestors were kept alive, but she also embraced the need for change, recognizing that tradition must adapt to the challenges of the modern world. She became a symbol of hope, a beacon of light, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail. Her character arc was complete, her journey from a curious young woman to a wise and respected leader a testament to her resilience and her courage. Themba, her loyal companion and her love, stood by her side, their bond strengthened by their shared experiences. They worked together to rebuild the village, their love for each other a source of inspiration and hope. Their future was bright, their lives intertwined, their love a testament to the power of connection in the face of adversity. Their stories served as a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, love can prevail, providing solace and strength in the most challenging of times. The memory of Chief Sangu, his sacrifice and his redemption, served as a powerful lesson for the villagers, a reminder that even those who have made mistakes can find their way back to the light. His story became a cautionary tale, highlighting the destructive nature of pride and the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. His character arc, once a source of conflict, now became a source of inspiration, his journey from a flawed leader to a repentant hero a testament to the power of forgiveness. Years passed, and Mcombane flourished, the village becoming a symbol of resilience and hope. The story of the Tokoloshes was passed down through generations, a reminder of the dangers of tampering with the spirit world and the importance of respecting the ancient ways. The villagers learned to live in harmony with nature, their connection to the earth, and the spirit world a source of strength and guidance. The conclusion of the story was not just an ending, it was a beginning, a promise of a brighter future shaped by the lessons of the past. Now, as we reflect on the journey of the villagers of Mcombane, let us consider the importance of community, the power of courage, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. What will you carry forward from this story? What lessons will you apply to your own life? The story has ended, but the journey of reflection has just begun. Let's continue the conversation and share the wisdom we've gained.